We are recording. So
Okay.
I'm going to be just interviewing you a few questions. I'm probably going to start with a bio that Shelly provided me.
Okay.
Maybe some questions from there. And then I'm hoping you'll dissect the famous tornado method.
Okay. Not a problem.
So first, I'm embarrassed. How do you say your last name correctly?
Lavigne or Lavigne?
How do you prefer it?
French Canadian. Lavigne.
Lavigne. Okay.
Lavigne or Lavigne?
Annette Lavigne.
Yes.
It's a wonderful name. It's a wonderful name.
Thank
And
you.
in the bio here, I had no idea that. Sorry.
Paul, you could just probably turn it up again a little bit. I can hear you, but just a little bit more.
You got it. How about now?
Okay. That
Does that do anything?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
All right.
So, Annette, thank you for letting me interview you this evening. We have a lot to cover because I'm very curious.
Okay.
First of all, I had no idea you were a reverend. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
I'm a wedding officiant. And I was also, I had a ministry in a church at one time. A ministry is when a church just allows you to run a group. I had Find Your Voice Ministries. So, but the wedding officiant is just it's a different level. And I had to get that, or I had to be that to be a wedding officiant. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and I have to ask, did you become a reverend and a officiant before joining Toastmasters, or was it a result of Toastmasters?
No, that was about just 3 years ago.
Oh my goodness. So walk me through it. Because in here, you've been part of Toastmasters since 1993? 95.
95.
And what brought you to Toastmasters? How did you hear about it, first of all? And
okay. Really, you want to know that stuff?
yes.
I'm just joking. It's 1995. So I had heard about Toastmasters for 19 years prior to that date. My sister-in-law had encouraged me to go when I was 19 years old. And of course, Paul, you and I both know the first time you hear about Toastmasters, you say, why would I go there? And my problem really wasn't speaking, it was keeping my mouth shut. So someone telling me to go somewhere to learn how to public speak and speak, I said, are you crazy? So 19 years later, I think I came to terms with, I knew I had a communication challenge, a real communication problem. And one day my mother suggested that that I was very much like my dad, who was a pretty angry fella. And when she told me I was like my father, I knew for sure something had to give with my ability to communicate with other people. And so I metaphorically walked into Toastmasters and said, handcuffs in the back. And I said, keep me here and, take the cuffs off when I start to be a better person. And it took a long time, I really struggled with communicating with people, and I wasn't a really very nice person. And I wasn't a nice person at the start of Toastmasters either. And, you don't know me back then. And I could probably dig out a few people who could tell you. But anyway, that's why I ended up there. And it took a lot of years to learn how to speak. I had to learn how to speak in my own way because the traditional way of memorizing speeches just didn't work for me. And that was due to another situation, having trouble in school. So I don't know, things just go the way they go. And I'm very fortunate that I found Toastmasters. Let's just put it that way.
That's amazing. I've never heard of somebody going to listen or to improve. Usually it's fear-based, right? That's what I hear a lot. Like, I'm so nervous to speak, but it sounds like, no, it was it was something else. It was,
well, you might not have been there a few weeks ago. I talked about the elite 13%. That's my own number. So the 87% go to Toastmasters to learn to speak up. And there's 13%, I call us the elite, who go there to learn to shut up. You don't hear about those very often. I'm probably one of the few that will admit that I went there to learn to shut up. So nobody talks about it, but there's a lot of people that come into Toastmasters. Sometimes they don't make it. Sometimes they get kicked out because they can't control their mouth. So I appreciate that I was given about 8 or 10 years of a lot of patient people. We don't just talk about that very often. And I think people need to know that Toastmasters is not just about the quiet people. It's about people who are struggling with speaking too much and not being able to be compassionate enough. And when I talk about why I joined Toastmasters, I always tell people it was to learn to shut up and not speak up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I also in this bio, I was fascinated that you came across you started a program to help people get out of their shell. Is that true?
Yes. Shy Busters. Speak with Ease, Shy Busters. I came to the conclusion at one time that people were asking me to help them with their speeches. And it suddenly occurred to me that those people were introverted or shy people. And so I specifically designed a program called Shy Busters to help shy people. It was never about learning how to public speak, really, per se. But from the beginning of the day, by the end of the day, I actually had them up speaking. And I could do this in a group setting or one-on-one. And I don't know if you've ever had a one-on-one public speaking session, Paul, but it is just as nerve-wracking as speaking to a group. It is, because one person's keeping an eye on you and they're evaluating you. And so taking a shy person, and first of all, we changed the label. They weren't shy anymore. And by the end of the day, they were just really comfortable with who they were. Whether it be shy or introverted, we just called them quiet. They were quiet people. They were no longer shy. So, and I used the method of public speaking, but I did it's a different format than what you and I do at Toastmasters.
If you could give a tip, if you could give a tip for somebody.
Okay. I had people reading out, like I formulated all the words and I had them fill in the blanks. The reason I am here today is because, and they filled in the blanks. So it became very emotional. I didn't have them produce speeches because they were already dealing with, self-love, self-confidence. So I kind of prepared everything, but left a lot of blanks and they had to fill them in. So that's kind of a different thing than suggesting tips for, shy people. I had a shy daughter and I had her coached. I had her coached by a fellow Toastmaster. And that coach suggested to her that she step out and do things that scare you. My husband's very introverted. And he remembered when he was younger, he said, I just decided at some point that I was going to do everything that scares the crap out of me. And eventually he just got over it. First of all, I went into sales, on the road sales. I mean, can you imagine knocking on doors and you are just crumbling inside? And so with my daughter, there was ideas for her to join cheerleading. Really a shy, introverted kid joining cheerleading, but she did. And she ended up being the one the teacher kept saying, scream like Stevie, like she's loud, like listen to her go. So once she was so scared to do everything, but once she kept taking those chances, everything was better for her. She's still quiet. My husband is still quiet, but they're quiet kind of people. They're quiet and they're okay with it. They embrace their quietness because they know that they're really good listeners as well. So, but as far as the program goes, it was designed to take people from 0 to 60 with their fear of standing up and speaking. So
that sounds amazing. That sounds
and it was.
You are a DTM. What is a
Yes.
DTM?
DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster. I think there's 1.5 to 2% of all Toastmasters that are DTM. Maybe those numbers have changed, so I could be corrected on that. DTM. DTM means you went through all the manuals, all the requirement to become a distinguished Toastmaster. Some of you know some people who get this done in 3 years. You know them. You know some people that got it done in 2 years, 5, 7, 9. I took 24. And that's because I was so actively speaking that I just didn't have the time to focus on my DTM. But come near pathways, I was so close, I had to get it done. And that's what I did. It was a lot of work, a lot of work. That's where I learned how to figure out how much food for those functions, the ones that you were helping me with. Somebody had already done it before me, so they gave me the plan. I took the plan, made it my own. And that's what we do at Toastmasters. We take what someone's done before us and we either make it better or, we don't try to reinvent the wheel at Toastmasters. We try to do what other people's did before us. But that's where I learned to create events, create meetings. A distinguished Toastmaster means that you dabbled a little into a lot of things. And that's what gives us the confidence to be just good communicators, better communicators. And if someone asks me tomorrow to do something, I'm not so apt to say no because I've done something like it. And you know what I'm talking about, all the events we've done. We have to arrange things. Just a really good, it was really good. And when it was time to do director, I thought that was great as well.
Director
So
of
helping other groups.
director of the area.
Director of the area. That's as far as I went. I think that was the only requirement I needed to be a DTM. But when I cross over, I went in head first. So it was a great year and keeping track of everything over 25 years. I had to have access to all that information. It was great. I'm glad I finally did it, and I am a more relaxed Toastmaster today because I got my DTM.
That's awesome. Okay. I have to ask, you've mentioned this a few times. You invented a method.
Yeah.
It's called the perfect storm or the tornado method. And I have a nice little handout here. It's a wonderful visual. And it's actually how to make a speech, 5 to 7 minute speech in 950 words.
Yes.
So give it to me. If I had to write a speech, I actually do have to write a speech for tomorrow for work, a little presentation. Yeah.
Okay.
How would I tackle it?
Okay. So how did this come about? First of all the ideas, not the tornado, all the ideas, all the words that I have on there, those are all from all the former champs. Jim Key, Darren LaCroix, Lance, Randy Harvey. When I went to the conferences, I listened to how these gentlemen talked about creating speeches, and LaShonda Rundles as well, not all men, some women too. So all the guts is everything that I've ever learned from all the champs. The tornado came to me because I had to figure out a method for myself, taking all these ideas and visualizing it in my head. I am not capable of memorizing. Again, childhood stuff seems to really bung us up sometime. I had a teacher and actually, Paul, 50 years ago, if you can imagine, I was just thinking about that 10 minutes ago, that it was 50 years ago that a teacher told me to shut up and sit down and shut up and don't ever say another word again. She didn't know I was French Canadian and I was in an English school and I said the word hell instead of hail, hell of Mary instead of hail Mary. And, she had no idea. She didn't have a clue. She thought I was being funny. She thought I was, And anyway, so when she told me to sit down and shut up, I'm telling you, literally, my brain that day stopped learning because I had been an AB student as a French kid. And now my mind, I was fearful every day of school. Every day I went to school, I was scared. I was scared to be called upon. I was scared to talk. And that carried right through till 16. 16, I quit school. I told them to all shove it. I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. So now I'm in this organization who tells us to produce speeches. And I'm hearing people say, well, you know, you got to memorize and you got to whatever. And I remember one of the champs, I don't know which one, who said, it's not about memorization, it's about internalizing a speech. So I said, okay, what's internalizing mean? And they said, well, if you know a story, you already know a story. You don't have to memorize that. That's the story I just told you. I didn't have to memorize that. I don't have to memorize the day Mrs. You know, so and so put me down when I was like 10 years old. I don't have to memorize that story. Now, for a speech contest, what I would do is sit down and I would try to select better wording because I have to tell the story I just told you was probably even maybe a bit too long. So in a speech contest or speeches, we have to contain the stories. So we have to say, they say 14 words down to 12, down to 7. So in 7 words, you try to say what you would normally say in 15 to 20 words. That's the work. But the story itself is there. It's internalized. With this method, all my inner guts, they're all internalized. My messages, my questions, my stories, those are internalized. The only thing that I memorize is the top and the bottom. And that's because a former world champ suggested that when we're in a contest, boy, if we're going to screw up, it's either going to be at the beginning or the end. And I have been there and done it. It's your mind goes blank, and it very seldom goes blank in the center. It goes blank because you're nervous to get going and you know you're on your way out and you've almost got it done. You're so close, and boom, everything's gone. So when I produce a speech now, oh my goodness, I work so hard at the beginning and the end. And you'll notice that the beginning and the end are a lot longer than the middle. Randy Harvey said that we spend far too much time focusing on the middle, and we do like a one-liner. So and so once said, it's great to fly a balloon or whatever, go kite flying, Madam Chair, Mr. Toastmaster, whatever. So the opening was only 12 words. So he's saying, no. Like your opening's got to be like a tornado. It's got to have impact. It's got to, people just got to sit back and go, whoa, what are they about to talk about? Because they sure got my attention. Well, it's hard. It's easier to do that with 200 words than 12.
Yeah.
All right. So add impact, create a paragraph, not a line or two. And the ending is the same way. Again, I always say we have to be clear that we're closing. When our audience is listening to us, they want to know when we say in closing, for instance, try not to use that in a speech contest because it's been used too many times. When we start to close, the tornado starts to, like it becomes really clear that when someone takes the time to prepare, okay, they're about to close. They're about to close now. Our minds do something as an audience. It's like, oh, she's getting ready to close. I got to listen. I really got to listen to her good now because this is the final few words. So we have to also memorize that. And it also has to be, what did I put here? How many words? Oh, I didn't put, but it should be at least 150, 200 words. It has to be longer than a sentence because you and I both know, Paul, sometimes their ending creeps up on us and then it just feels like you walked to a wall, right? It's like, oh,
I
they
am
just closed.
Yeah,
And
I
we
am
were,
guilty of that. 100%
pardon?
guilty of that. I'm guilty of that 100%. I
You know
always,
what? I think that the last speech or the one before, yeah, I said, Paul, expand on your close.
yeah.
Because it's like somebody just kicked us, right? Like kicked
There's
the
no
can
closure.
down
It
the hill.
just, yeah, yeah.
There was, you got me ready. It's like, oh, and then I went, oh, like I literally have to hold myself back because I'll go, oh,
So you have to,
it's,
you have to let them know, okay, here's that.
I'm winding down. Okay, going,
Winding down. Ah, okay.
still with impact though, right? Because
Right.
people are still listening to you. So of course the ending has to be just as grand as the tornado impact with words. But yeah, you got it's a wind down, right? Wind down, wind down, wind down to the skinny part of the tornado. It has to build down. It can't just go whew, because your audience just like, oh, and they didn't catch it. They
Yes.
caught that you ended, but they didn't catch. That's the opportunity to wrap up the whole speech.
So I'm just gonna go through the template. So if
Sure.
people don't have a copy of this, so the opening, 200 words. Spend
Yeah.
more time on the opening and closing. A quote, a statistic, shocking one. Ask a question. Choose your words carefully. One topic only. Practice and memorize your opening and close more than your 3 stories, because you said you already internalized them. And then this last sentence for that little section at the top, you said, use you more than I. Create chuckles, pause. That last sentence, what does that mean?
Okay. So when you create speeches, you're talking to an audience. When you create speeches, do you often struggle with your openings and your endings? Do you often call another Toastmaster? Do you read a magazine? What gets you inspired to write your next speech? This I'm still working on because it's so easy for me to say, so when I create speeches, this is what I do, which is what I've been doing the last 20 minutes because you're interviewing me on this. So it's almost like I was given a kind of little bit permission. Actually, I was given permission to use I a lot more than you because I'm not presenting to an audience. We're doing an interview, but when you're presenting to a group, we're supposed to be there to serve them, so we're supposed to ask them questions, give them thoughts to ponder on. So the word you should be used a lot more than I whenever we're speaking. If you ever listen to the more successful winners and speeches, there's a lot of yous in there.
Okay. So then the next section says 150 words, a story, message, your point in the story or message, I versus you. Now it's switched. Is that correct? It started with,
Well, because when you're sharing a story, now you're going to reflect on yourself,
okay.
right? But your transition, what about you? How did you feel when you were in high school?
Ah.
I told you the story about how I was in school. I told you that story and how devastating it was and how it changed my life. What about you? Did you have anything devastating happen to you when you were in school?
Quite a few of them. Yes.
Pause. Right?
Yes.
Pause.
Yeah.
Then
You
I got to
already
get
have me thinking. You already have me thinking. I'm listening, going, yeah. I'm thinking about my stories now. It's almost like
and
you.
and we need to give our audience permission to have a thought or two. Whether it be 4, 5, 6 seconds, that time. That's why the 950 words, not the 1500 words, so that we can stop and look at the audience, right? While they're thinking.
So that pause is intentional. It allows them to reflect for about them. And then you jump in. You say again, 150 story message. Point in your story or message. I versus you, one topic. And then again, a transition. Right. Give them a chance to
the
think about.
Transition is your opportunity to ask questions again.
Okay.
The transition is always an opportunity to ask a question that leads into the next section.
Excellent.
Okay. And I'm still working on this. You missed chuckle meters.
Chuckle meters. Did I miss that? Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, so I need to cover that because at the World Championships right now, the last few that I attended, something shifted. There's been a really big shift with speaking, and my stories do not cut it because they make people cry. So I have to learn how to make people chuckle. And I was literally told by Darren LaCroix that there is a chuckle meter, and they are literally waiting between 5 and 7 minutes for 13 chuckles. They want to be
Wow.
entertained and want to laugh at least 11 to 13 times. Don't quote me on this. This is all in my memory. So chuckles are really important.
Oh
So
my
we
goodness.
can't forget that. For today's speeches, 10 years ago, not so. 5 years ago, maybe not. Absolutely important today.
It's almost the standard now. That's
It
interesting.
is.
That's interesting.
Until it changes again, that's what I've heard anyway.
This is
Okay.
this is an excellent method. This is definitely going to help me.
Okay. And with your experience being around, you should be able to do this like tonight. Following this?
I'm hoping.
No, you can, Paul. I mean, you've been writing a lot of speeches. This is just breaking it down, right?
No, this is an excellent method. So the tornado
Well, thank
method.
you.
It's
Thank you.
it's very excellent.
And it looks just like that.
Oh, look at that. That's perfect. That's
Yeah.
excellent. I was pleased as I was going through your bio that you actually mentioned a few interesting things just about your philosophy on just having an open mind to people's faith and how they live their life. And do you just want to share that?
Keeping an open mind on people's a difference of opinion, faiths. Absolutely. I don't believe that I have not been put on this earth, and Toastmasters has very much taught me this. I have not been put on this earth to tell you who you should believe in, what you should believe in. It's my job to live according to my faith and be an example so that people come over and say, why are you so calm and you don't seem to worry? Because I'm not a worrier like I used to be. And that's between Toastmasters and my faith. I'm a pretty calm person. I'm pretty hyper, but inside I'm a pretty calm person. And it's not my role or job to change anybody or change their opinions. I'm pretty strong. I'm sure when it comes to certain things. Sometimes I need to take a step back and I've been told many a times take a step back and I have, or sometimes I need to be reminded. But I think when we believe in something or that we have faith and whatever our faith or higher power is, we need to live it. We're not here to talk it. I have a big family. It's not my job to try to save my family. At one time, I saw that was my responsibility to try to, get everybody to Toastmasters so they could get healthy too. And, and I soon found out that, nobody wanted me around. So when I stopped telling them what to do, they all welcomed me back and, it's been great ever since. So I think we have to live our faith. We have to walk our faith, not spew our faith and not try to tell people what to do.
Set an
And
example.
I really believe that.
That's
I
excellent.
really believe that.
Annette, I think I'm out of questions. I'm just so happy you're part of our club now. When I put on the 50th gala years ago, and I had to put together a program, I had to get together all the past presidents, and your name I think popped up a few times as a part of Barrie Toastmasters, and I was like, wow, you have history with the club. It was
When I moved out of Mississauga and moved to Cookstown, that was my first group.
That's awesome. Oh wow.
And then I moved out of the area. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you so much for giving me the time.
No problem. It was my pleasure. And if I can help all the newbies, this is really, it's good for people who've been around, but it's really good for the new people too who are struggling. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much for doing the interview.
You bet.
All right. Okay. Thank you.